A tough loss for the Vikings. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Lago Vista Football Show, right here on S2S Sports Network, part of L4 Media. As the Vikings fall in a tough one against Little Rivers Academy, 27-24. This is that one of those games you point at, and Coach will say it. The young team, young mistakes, young results, and that's what happened in this game. Little Rivers Academy is a really solid team, and they made the plays when they needed to. Lago Vista offensively looked great at times, but turnovers, some of them unforced, which honestly, that's a good thing. Those are teachable. Coach and I get into a good discussion about that. Turnovers are not just turnovers. You have unforced turnovers and you have forced turnovers. What you want to try to do on the forced turnovers is teach the kids to protect the ball better, but sometimes that's just going to happen, just like the hitting the quarterback and the ball bounces right to a defensive lineman. I mean, you can practice that all week for months, and you're still going to have those plays. It's the bad exchanges. It's the things like that, though, that are teachable, and that's the thing that this coaching staff's having to do with a team that, again, is young. Maybe not necessarily in age. There's a lot of juniors. But just as far as actual varsity snaps. And that's the growth of this. And you knew going into this year it was going to be different than last year and even different than 2020 when you had a junior-laden roster of a bunch of starters coming back from a 9-4 team, and they go 10-4 in 2021 and then 10-4 again last year. The Vikings easily can get back into that spot. I say easily, but I mean relative to. They just got to grow up on the field, and you're seeing that. And none of this should be surprising. You would like to win these games, but, hey, this is a year when 5 non-district games is an advantage because you're just getting more and more snaps to where by the time some of these kids are hitting varsity play, by the time you start that first game against Navarro on the road, October 6th, you're going to have guys that have had 100 snaps. And the difference between a kid with 0 snaps and 100 snaps is big. And so, again, growing pains are happening, but the growing pains are happening for the success to grow later on. It's a thing that one of the coaches I talked to who has a really good team, they lost a tough one. And as we talked about, it's all about the pain now for the glory in December. The Viking Booster Club want to remind you that the Viking Sports Network is now powered by Huddle TV. That's awesome. That means you can see every game, every sport, all on Huddle TV. But there's a couple things you need to do if you haven't done it yet. That's create an account. Just go to www.fan.huddle.com. Search for Lago Vista. Then, if you're ready, you've got your account set up, then you buy your broadcast. Now, there's 3 options. You can get $8 for one game, $15 for a month, or $75 for a yearly subscription. Honestly, if you're just there to watch football, do the $15 a month. Hoping that Lago Vista plays into December, that September, October, November, and December monthly subscription. Now, if you're going to watch all Lago Vista sports, that including volleyball, basketball, baseball, softball, and, of course, football, I would do the yearly. It's $75. You're one and done. And then you've got Lago Vista sports for the rest of the 2023-24 calendar year. So, again, check out www.fan.huddle.com. Sign up if you haven't got an account. If you have any questions, email eholt@lagovistaisd.net. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista Football Show. Now joined by the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips. And, Coach, a tough loss against a good Little River Academy team, 27-24. Your thoughts on the game?
I thought the kids improved from last week to this week. There were some things that we focused on and wanted to be better at, and I think we accomplished that. I think we still have a ways to go, obviously, with our youth. There's still a lot of mistakes and, trusting the footwork and trusting the process that we've got to continue to be better on each week. Certainly turnovers hurt us, and I think that was probably the biggest thing that made the difference in the final outcome of the game.
As a coach, turnovers are one of those things we always call they're the great equalizers, them and penalties. As a coach, what do you do going into a week after a game where you've had a bunch of turnovers? How do you coach that?
I think you just continue to do your drills that focus on handling it, after the catch or after the handoff, or ours were turnovers were not as I guess fixable this week. Like things that you could work on is where you carry the ball, if it's too low, if it's away from your body, that kind of thing. We fumbled an exchange. We had a quarterback got hit trying to throw the ball and ended up directing it directly to a defensive lineman. So our turnovers were not as much ball handling. But when that is the case, I think you stick the scout team on them and, put a bounty on getting a fumble in practice and get those guys to really focus on, hanging on through contact and finishing the play with the ball.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. We always think of turnovers just as a singular thing, but no turnover's the same. Some of them are unforced, some of them are forced. You talk about like the exchange. That's the kind of things y'all can fix, though, right?
Right. We had a pitch. We're an option team, and so we had a pitch that it got off late. I think his read kind of surprised him. He thought it was getting blocked, and all of a sudden was in his face. And so we tried to pitch it last second, and it got batted down. So that was one fumble. It was a handoff on a dive. That was one fumble. It was the deal. So there's things that we can do in practice, and it's just reps and being comfortable doing things fast. As we get comfortable executing the offense with speed, I think those ball handling things, are continuing to get better.
That goes along to what you keep talking about, a young roster. They're still out there thinking instead of reacting. And for frustrating as it can be, it's simply just getting a ton of snaps for these kids.
That's really all it is. And it's, it's something you have to endure. There's no, I guess there's no magic pill for it or anything like that. There's nothing like experience. And so that's what your preseason is for. Of course, you'd like to go out and win your games on Friday night. Certainly we all do. We want to win. We want to play to win. We want to make decisions that help us win. And, but there's some headaches. There's some bumps in the road. There's some youth that we're going to have to grow up. And as you get through those rough patches, you should be smoothing them over each and every week. And we feel like we went in the right direction this week for sure. It was, kind of very disappointing to not get the win. Really felt pretty confident about what we could have done. We had some untimely penalties. Of course, the turnovers that we've talked about. It just kind of kept us from finishing the job.
You talk about the youth of this team. Are you starting to see leaders come forward?
I think they're doing a good job. This is a great group of seniors. Really, one of the best I've had here. Really, as far as their positivity and pushing each other to do well, and they push each other in practice. They're very verbal in practice. About getting things right and keeping the energy up. I think they're doing a really good job with that. I think that's not I don't know if that's not like an issue, like we're not fragmenting or anything like that. The kids they're pretty dedicated to making sure that we are the best team possible on Friday night.
Well, and you and I talked a little bit about it the first couple of weeks. Being a young team, do you coach them different as a young team than when you did last year? Like with your offense specifically last year, being more seniors laden.
Right. I think patience is the difference, right? If you've got a bunch of kids that are returning starters from the year before and they're making mistakes, that's typically an effort issue or a focus issue, and, have very little patience for that. When you have kids that this is their first time in this role or their first time to really get it done on a Friday night, then, we don't lose our mind at practice every day when they're messing up. It's, all right, little buddy, here, let's look at this again, and what did you see? I think coaching is teaching, right?
Yep.
And checking for understanding is a big part of it. My wife, a phenomenal teacher, she taught me that. To what do they know? Like you think they absorb everything that you say, but they absolutely do not. And so, what do they know? What were they thinking? What did they see? And then you can redirect from there. And I think that's the patience that it takes to coach a young or inexperienced team. And, we're not necessarily young. We've got a bunch of juniors out there. There are sophomores on the field, but it's even some of the seniors that don't have actual game experience. We're getting into a point where that's going to stop being an excuse, though, right? Like, we have to start producing. I think they understand that, and I think their heart's in the right place as far as coming to practice with the right attitude and trying to get that win for the next week.
Well, it's funny. You literally took what I was about to ask you. I know you can't actually give an exact number, but how far into this season do you feel that the young players stop being young and they're just players?
Well, I've told them all they have to bump up one grade level this week. Regardless of what grade they're in, they've got to start playing like they're in the one above it. And I think that's a focus thing.
Yeah.
We have 5 preseason games. We've got 5 outstanding teams that we get to play that all do something different offensively and defensively. So we're going to have to – it's such great – it's the whole purpose of the preseason, right? And it's to see different things, to have to come up with a different game plan each week, to how to attack or put yourself in the best position possible to win, and for the kids to learn that process. Some of them, they're just new to that process. You go through spring and it's all, offense is basically just choreography on air. And you get into the season and that choreography changes according to where the defense likes to line up, or how good this player is or that player is, or, what we feel like we can do to win. And so they're learning that whole process. And, the 5 preseason games, we've got tough matches every week. They're having to learn it on the fly, and I think they're doing a good job of it. And I think we're getting down the road. And so I don't know at what point we're going to be a complete product. I feel like probably never. I think you could get all the way to the state championship game and feel like the next week you'd probably do something better than you did that last week.
All right. Well, this week you're taking on Giddings, a Buffalo team that beat Gerald last week in a shootout, 49-42. You said it best when we were talking off that record. Giddings has always been athletic and speed, and that's no different this year.
Mm-hmm. Coach Adams does a really good job with them. They've got a good quarterback, good skill guys. Their offensive line is pretty solid. D-line's got a couple of guys that are pretty scary, and they're just very big and athletic. And then they've got speed all over the field, and they'll do things a little bit different than what we faced this last week. So it's a new adjustment for us. So these guys they're going to be a formidable opponent, of course. Another home game, to get ready for, and we hope to put it together this week.
Is your demanding work lifestyle in need of fire-resistant clothing that can keep up? Well, L4FR clothing should be your go-to for quality, affordability, safety, and style. L4FR was founded by a third-generation oil field worker who is also a veteran. Thus, this company has a deep appreciation for reliability and longevity, all while we provide first-rate customer service. Our durable apparel will serve you well for many years to come, whether you're working on a pipeline, a lineman climbing utility poles, or in any other environment requiring fire-resistant apparel. L4FR has you covered. Our apparel is tough enough to resist hazardous conditions while still providing high comfort and style. L4FR provides clothing options to ensure your safety and comfort, whether you're on the job or not. To view our complete inventory of flame-resistant garments, please visit our online store at l4frclothing.com or give us a call at 817-757-4935. Si habla español. Terry Bennett back here on the Lago Vista Football Show. As always, we want to thank the head coach of the Vikings, Coach Creighton Phillips, for joining us here. It's funny. I pull back the curtain a little bit. Some coaches are not as fun to talk to or enjoyable to talk to after a loss, and I get it. But I actually enjoy talking to Coach Phillips after a loss because of the way he breaks it down. He's very honest in his evaluation. And just like this year, he understands the difference in what, last year and being a senior-laden team and expectations compared to this year with a younger team and their expectations and their growth across the season. And it's fun. It's absolutely fun to talk about a team that you kind of pencil in at the beginning of the year like we did last year with Lago Vista. Is like, hey, I know they're moving up and they're in a really tough district, but this is a team that inside this region will make hay. And they did. It's also fun, though, when you're talking about a new team and you see that growth and you see the difference in week 1 and week 10 of a team. And you see a difference with the great teams in the middle of the season, too. But it's just, I don't know. It's the moment that light comes on these players after that, like I said, 100th, 120th snap, and things start to become more reactionary to read and think. That's when you just see that. It's almost like an audible visual moment where the click happens and you just go, oh, this team's figured it out. I'm not saying the Vikings are there yet, but they will be. And again, like I said, this is where playing the 5 non-district games really, really helps, in my opinion. I'm not a big fan of that when you get put in a district where you've got to find 5 non-district games. It's just tough finding games. There's a little bit of weariness, and you kind of get tired of the non-district. Yes, it counts, and the stats count, and the record technically counts, but we all know it doesn't really count as far as, getting into the playoffs. But this year, I think it's absolutely perfect. I think it'll help this team grow to where by the time district play gets going, they're going to look a lot like they did last year inside this district. All right. Well, that's going to do. Oh, by the way, any questions, thoughts, or comments, email me, Terry@s2ssport.com. These shows go up on Tuesday afternoon, record them on Tuesday morning. We do appreciate all the people that have messaged us, telling me how much they enjoy these shows, including Lago Vista Show. Also, if you're a 4A state fan, you want to check in on the rest of the state, check out our Sideline to Sideline 4A show. We do one for 3A and 2A as well, but especially for you being a 4A team, our 4A show, the SI Design and Printing Sideline to Sideline 4A. We record all those on Tuesday night, audio only, and up on YouTube. If you heard the L4 Media, we have a YouTube channel. Check it out at L4 Media Company. And we do appreciate all the subs we're getting there and all the views. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we'll get back together and we'll talk about hopefully the big win over Giddings and the matchup against LaGrange. But we'll do that next week on the Lago Vista Football Show, brought to you by the Lago Vista Boosters, right here on S2S Sports, part of L4 Media.